go.
Hello, friends. My name is Howard Storm. I'm talking about my near-death experience, which is encapsulated in a very simple and brief way in a book that I wrote, which was published in the year 2000, and it's called My Descent into Death. We've been kind of discussing, not reading, just discussing. I've been discussing it chapter by chapter, and now we're covering territory in chapter 4, titled Alone. And Corey Odo is the host of this program. And at the end, we're going to touch on a couple of questions that have come in. Of course, you're invited to submit questions to Corey Odo. He'll give you the address for that. If you would like to ask anything, we'll try to address those in a timely fashion. So, I'm not going to do a synopsis of what led up to all this, but after a medical crisis, I died in a hospital in Paris in June 1985, and I was taken by a group of people into the darkness and tormented and torn apart. And I heard a voice say 3 times to me, "Pray to God." And I was an atheist at the time, and third time I tried to thought I'd give it a try, and it drove the people away from me. So that was very rewarding to have driven them off, because before, try as I might, I was not able to defeat them or resist them in any way. And so they had their way with me in every meaning of the word or phrase. And so I was left alone in that place, total darkness, all ripped up, unable to move, just total pain, physical pain, but much more importantly, emotional pain, psychological pain. Because none of this made any sense. Why is this happening to me? Why did they do this to me? Where am I? A couple things I knew was there was no way out for me. I was stuck there forever and ever and ever, and this was my fate, and it was horrible. So, well, what can I say except I was in the pit of despair. And in that place, I went over my life and thought about my relationship with my mother and father, and my sisters, my friends, my students, and came to the conclusion that it was my fault, no matter what the circumstances. It was my fault that I had failed in those relationships. I had no relationship with my father, just extreme hostility to the point that we didn't have any contact at all, which made it very difficult to have any relationship with my mother, whom I did care about, but I know I'd disappointed and hurt her many times. My sisters, my 2 sisters and I were not close. My wife and I had a lot of problems, and I was not a good father, and my kids were pretty independent of me. My daughter at the time was 18, my son was 15, and I hadn't shown a lot of interest in them, and they weren't showing much interest in me either. The students were, they were nice kids, but I just kind of saw them, and they were my livelihood, so they were important to be, trying to be nice to, but basically they were kind of a nuisance. And my buddies, the people that I went out drinking with every weekend, I knew that they were just good time buddies, no one that I could really rely on for anything. Like if I'd had a car break down at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't think any of them would have come. you know, like, hey, you know, call a towing service. Yeah, that's what they would have. That's what they would have said. You know, but they would have shown up anyways. Not someone whom I could have ever gone knocking on their door in the middle of the night asking for help. Anyhow, so it's like the bottom line was I came to the conclusion: what was I born for? You know, like I thought I was so great. I thought I was like the you know the most wonderful, gifted person in the world. I mean, I really did. You know, very, very egocentric and very inflated sense of myself. And I come to realize I am not great. I am not special. I am not important. I'm just, at best, another mediocre human being who was born into this crummy world, lived a mediocre life, and now I've died. And like, I made no difference at all. I just took up a lot of oxygen and a bunch of food and made a lot of poop. And that, and that was my contribution to the world. I mean, like just a bug, just another bug, you know, going around thinking that I was something, totally deceiving myself. It's very, very disillusioning, to put it mildly, deeply depressing, to put it, more realistically. So like I'm running the place and like, there's no way out. I can't think of anything. And then my mind, searching subconsciously for a way out, gives me a very vivid memory of myself as a child in a Sunday school class at church, where we were taken by our parents to, church on Sunday. And we were singing "Jesus Loves Me." I could see the classroom. I could see me. I could see our Sunday school teacher, the woman who taught the Sunday school. And I kept hearing over and over in my head myself and the other children singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know. Jesus loves me, this I know." I didn't even remember the rest of the verses. It's just, "Jesus loves me, this I know." Most importantly, I could see this, I could hear this, but most importantly, I felt it. I felt my simple childlike faith. And it was in a guy by the name of Jesus, who was kind of like a Superman figure. And when I was a child, and when I went to bed and had nightmares, I would call on him. I would pray to him, and he would make my nightmares go away. My nightmares specifically were, I had a bedroom up in the attic of the house. I was by myself up there, and I used to. This happened a lot. That horrible creatures, alligators, bears, lions, would come creeping out of the closets and down the hall, and start surrounding my bed, and they were going to eat me. And I'd and I'd call on Jesus, and they would all go away. And that happened many, 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 many times in my childhood. And there are a lot of other things that I prayed for too, but that one was extremely vivid. And he always answered my prayers, and I'd be able to have a good night's sleep. So that's what I felt and knew. And so I thought, what if it's true? What if he's real? What if he's still there? And then I had the thought, but why would he care about me? Since I had nothing to do with him, since I was about 15 years old, did nothing but ridicule Christianity and religion and people who followed Christ and stuff. And I thought, no, I don't have time to go through all this debate here. It's like, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to give it a try. What else have I got? I've got nothing, So I yelled out into the darkness, "Jesus, please save me." And when I said that, a tiny little speck of light appeared up high in the darkness, and it started getting very bright very rapidly. And my first reaction was that it was expanding, and then immediately I realized it wasn't expanding, it was coming to me. That's why it was getting bigger, because it was coming very, very rapidly to me, and it came right upon me, right in front of me, and it was brilliant white light, so bright that if you compared it to something in this world, like for example, I worked as a welder for a year, and you have to be real careful when you're welding to get your helmet down, because you've got a piece of black opaque glass built into your helmet to keep your eyes from being literally burned out, damaged from the bright white light of arc welding. It's really strong and really dangerous to look at. This light was brighter, but it didn't hurt, it didn't sear. Matter of fact, it felt wonderful. In that light, my whole life changed. And that's going to be the whole rest of what I'm going to talk about. And I'm sorry that I only have a dozen or so more hours to talk about it, because I'd like to talk about it with you for hundreds of hours. And believe me, I talk about it a lot. One of the things people ask me, did you know it was Jesus? And like, yeah, I got a whole bunch of reasons why I knew it was Jesus, but one of them I didn't know at the time, but I know now. Is Jesus often refers to himself as, like, quote from the Bible, Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." Stuff like that. I mean, Jesus very much identifies himself as light. So I'm laying on the ground. I'm roadkill. Think of a possum, a raccoon, a fox, whatever animals you ever seen on the highway that have been run over by a truck. That was me. Just gore, just a heap of gore. And that light came over me, and out of the light emerged hands and arms out of the center of that light and reached down and touched me. And when those hands touched me, all the gore began to drift away, and I reassembled in a matter of seconds and became like perfectly whole. And the hands reached down behind my back and picked me up. And one of the things that I was surprised was I could tell by the hands and the arms that it was, for them, effortless. It wasn't no difficulty picking me up. He just was picking me up gently and carefully and slowly, and took me into the body, the physical body that was in that light. And his arms went around me and held me firmly up against him. And I put my arms around him and held on to him. Now, I need to just back up. I mean, this is all happening in seconds. It's all happening quickly. When that light came upon me, I felt a love unlike any love I'd ever experienced in this world. And if you talk to or read or see people that have had near-death experiences, if they've really had a near-death experience, like, the big thing they want to talk about is love, God's love for us. That's consistent. If they're not talking about God's love, they didn't have near-death experience, okay? They had an experience, but it was not like what I'm talking about here. And And they certainly didn't have any experience with God. But anyways, the love is so much greater than anything we've ever known in this world that one of the frustrating things is the word love is inadequate to describe it. It is love, but it's of such a magnitude, it's like to the empire. It's the difference between a trickling creek or stream and an ocean. It's a whole lot more. It's totally overwhelming. I mean, it's really quite overwhelming. Still is. And the other characteristic of that light, which I knew was Jesus and came to understand fully that it was Jesus, was he loved me. It was personal. I'm going to talk about his love a lot more in the succeeding chapters, but no matter what I'd done, no matter who I was, no matter how much I had insulted him and rejected him and alienated myself from him, he loved me. That's one of the really difficult things for people to understand or accept about God, is that he loves us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. You can spit in God's face and you can cuss him out and you can tell him he doesn't exist and you don't care, and like you're going to do whatever you want to do, and he still loves you. Doesn't like that stuff. He can very much disapprove of things that we do. He can be horrified. Matter of fact, we can hurt him a lot by the things that we do. God has feelings. That's one of the big revelations in the Bible, is God has feelings. If you read the whole Old Testament, God is like a feeling God. If you read the New Testament, God is a feeling God. By the way, the Greeks believed that the very God of God, I'm not talking about the little gods, that they had. The Greeks had a God above and beyond all that. Okay, the great God, and they believed that God, the Stoics, the philosophers, believed that God had no feelings at all. God was utterly indifferent to us and to this world. It's called divine apatheia, divine indifference. The Jews believed in a passionate God, a God who had great hopes for us and great love for us. And there were times when we disappointed God and God was terribly upset, by the things that we did that were disappointing. Anyways, I felt not just love, but I felt accepted and loved for me, who I was. Not some generic, I love butterflies, I love seagulls, I love dogs. Not that kind of love. I'm talking about I love you. Totally life changing. Anyways, so I'm hanging on to him as hard as I can. He's holding on to me, and all of a sudden I get a uh-oh feeling, because I realize we're not on the ground anymore. We're going up. And it was real subtle. I didn't actually sense the liftoff. All of a sudden, we're not on the ground and we're moving. And then we're going faster and faster and faster. And it's like, I'm crying like a baby holding on to Jesus because I'm so happy. I'm not crying out of sadness. I'm crying because I can't express my happiness any way other way than like crying. And then I realized we're traveling. We're moving. We're really moving. And I'm thinking, I want to see where we're headed, but I've got my face in his chest and my eyes are full of tears. So I'm trying to get my composure together enough to look up to see where we're going. And I get it together enough to look, and what do I see? But what at first I think is a huge galaxy of stars. And then I suddenly realize all the stars are all moving. This gigantic galaxy of trillions and trillions of stars. They're not stars. They're there are other beings of light, like the one that I'm holding on to. Now, when we call them beings of light, their aura, if you will, is this brilliant white light. But there's a being inside that light. You know, they just have these incredibly brilliant auras. And matter of fact, after you get to know them a while, you really can start to see differences in their white light. You can start to see, different hues going on in the white light. White light is our perception of the different wavelengths of light that we're able to perceive. In the visible light spectrum, there's 3 wavelengths that we see. And if you see all 3 of them equally together, you see white light. Anyways, they're all distinct and different when you become acclimated to them and are able to look into that white light. But anyways, that's later on in the story. So I'm looking at this galaxy and all this coming and going, and then all of a sudden I have a very intense, profound feeling that, and I'll tell you what I thought. I know exactly what I thought. I thought, I'm a piece of shit. When I do my presentation, I never use that word. I always say garbage, but I'm just, that's what I actually thought. I'm a piece of shit. He's made a terrible mistake. I don't belong here. Now, I just want to do a little explanation here. If you had been living on the streets as a homeless person and hadn't bathed or changed your clothes in 6 months or a year, and you really stank, and your complexion was totally obscured by all the filth that accumulated all day because you hadn't washed your hands and face, and you had done and you had shoplifted, you had stole, you had panhandled, you had raped unconscious women in your homeless camps, found someone who was unconscious from drugs and alcohol, so you had at her. And you had lied and cheated and done every despicable thing you could, because you had no money and you were living in the streets homeless with a bunch of really rough people. And so you're lying in the gutter, in filth, and a huge limousine pulls up and says, "Come on in. We're going to take you to the White House. The president wants to meet you." Would you have second thoughts? Would you say, or better yet, the lizard pulls up and says, "The Pope would like to meet you. We're going to take you to the Vatican," whatever. Would you like, I can't go. I'm not dressed. I'm too dirty. Take me to a hotel and buy me some clothes or something, right? I wouldn't get in the limo. If you say you would, okay, more power to you. I wouldn't have done it. It's like, I felt like I was a despicable human being. And considering the place, I'm not just talking about the life that I lived, but considering the place that I just came from, I just came from the pest hole of the universe. And now here's this big giant galaxy of love. And the other thing I knew was the God that I had said all my life didn't exist. I knew that God was in that. I don't know how I knew it. I just knew it. It's like, oh, I was wrong. God's real. God's in that big pool of love and light, ocean, I should say. And it's like, it's not good. for me. With that, Jesus is holding me, I'm holding on to him, we're in space. We come to a halt, a complete stop outside of it. And he speaks to me for the first time. And he spoke to me telepathically, but he spoke in his voice. When I heard his words, I heard his voice. These were not my thoughts. It was clearly from him, not from me. And he said, quote, "We don't make mistakes. You belong here." And I thought, how did he know I just thought that? Because I didn't say it. And he said to me, in my mind, "I know everything you've ever thought." And I thought, that's really bad. That's really bad. There's lots of things I've thought that I don't want you to know that I've thought. And I started to think of the things that I had thought about that I didn't want him to know that I had thought about. A lot of it had to do with sex and women. And he started laughing, and I mean really laughing. And he thought it was really funny. And it took me a bit to understand why. I mean, I was confused. Why is he laughing? And he wasn't laughing because the things that I was thinking about were funny. What he found was funny was he had told me he knew everything I'd ever thought. Now I'm thinking about the things that I didn't want him to know that I had thought about. There's a certain irony there, because the more you think about the things you don't want to think about, like the more you think about them. And he just thought it was really funny that I was, getting this whole thing all messed up, like wrong, you know. But when he started laughing, it was like, wow, he laughs. I mean, I didn't know what he'd be like. I had no idea. I didn't know him. I had no clue what he'd be like. And the fact that he had a sense of humor, and he thought I was doing something funny, because he wasn't laughing at me. He was laughing at the irony, the ridiculousness of what I was doing, trying not to think about the things that I didn't want to think about. Anyways, it just made me relax a lot. Like, oh, I mean, basically, I'm going, he's cool, he's cool. He's, got a sense of humor. And so we began to converse. And so we're just like chit-chatting away up there, making small talk. Very easy to talk to. Very, very natural, very normal. I like to tell people this, that Jesus is the best friend you'll ever have. And I mean, he's a friend. He may be King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Son of God, Messiah, all that stuff is true. But he's also the best friend you'll ever have. And he knows everything about us. So you have nothing to hide. And you can talk to him about the stuff that you don't want to talk about. You can talk to him about the stuff that, you've never talked to anybody about. And he gets it, and he understands. And he does not approve of everything that we've ever done, but he's not punitive. He's not trying to tear us down or belittle us. He wants to love us and to make us have a better life, and to be a more kind person, a more loving person. That's what he wants. He's the best friend you'll ever have. And I hope I say that 100 more times during these interviews. So I'm not apologizing. I'm telling you, he's the best friend you'll ever have. If I could get that one thing across, that would be like, really great. Anyhow, so I'm going to wrap this up by bringing it to the conclusion of chapter 4, so I can lead into next time to chapter 5, which is life review. He said, I've got some people. He said, I've got some people I want you to meet. And he called out with musical tones, and a group of what I refer to as angels, these beings of light, came, and they hovered, because we're in space, we're not standing on anything. And they hovered around us, me and Jesus, in a semicircle, with Jesus holding me, except now that I've turned and I'm facing them. And he said to me, they have been with you all your life, and they have recorded your life, and now they want you to see your life. And that was the life review that I got. They proceeded to show me with images and sound in the middle of us. It was sort of like holograms, I guess. They showed me my life beginning with my birth, and that's where I'm going to go into in the next episode. So that concludes this part of the story. And Corey told me that a couple of people have asked questions that I want to respond to.
Okay. Very good information you just gave. Opened my eyes a bit. But the questions I asked you earlier, every time we do an interview, I come up with some of my own. So I'll get into the ones that other people ask, though. It says, do you feel that God needed you to experience this personally in order to help you change as a human being? Because you said you were an atheist beforehand.
The answer to that is absolutely yes. I think that's the whole point. God's actually giving tens and hundreds of millions of these kinds of experiences to people all over the world. And I think God is really intervening in the world now to make some big world changes. And the way that we change the world is by one person at a time. I don't think governments change much of anything. I don't think the academic institution, which was a part of for a long time, do a little bit. Hospitals do a little bit, but it's basically one at a time, one person at a time. That's how you change the world.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. The other question that we had was just trying to read this in a way that I can make you understand it, I guess. Are demons and Satan and fallen angels in this place that you were at? Like you say, I don't know what it was called, maybe purgatory you refer to it as. And why don't they call on Jesus to save them? Or do they have that option?
Everyone has the option to call upon Jesus. Why they don't? A really good question. They could have. When I was calling upon God, they told me there was no God. Nobody could hear me. They've rejected God, and they are stubbornly holding on to that belief. And I compare them to what I know about alcoholics and drug addicts. Is like, you can go up to an alcoholic or drug addict and say, hey, you'd have a much better life and solve a lot of your problems if you stop drinking or if you stop using, the drugs that you're using. But don't do that. Don't ever do it, because what you're going to get is you are going to be blasted with some really abusive language. Alcoholics and drug addicts can stop when they want to stop with the help of God. And you telling them to stop is only going to make them more angry. And frankly, it's going to give them an excuse to get more alcohol and more drugs.
Yeah, very true. I don't tell too many people this, but I believe it took me a long time to get to this conclusion, but I believe that was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
With my experiences, but I've gave it to God, and He certainly changed me. It's been 5 years for me, or just about 5 years. So it does work, prayer and stuff like that. The only other thing, I guess, reaching like lost people. I mean, I had an apprentice, because I'm a carpenter, and I had an apprentice that he self-proclaimed Satanist, and we got into a little bit of a debate, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
And he was just ranting and raving about hail Satan, hail this, hail that. And I just said to him, I just kind of come over me one day. I just said, you know what, man, every knee is going to bow to Jesus someday. So you might want to get right with him. He said something I can't repeat on TV or on YouTube because it was very it actually really
Vulgar.
saddened me. Yeah, it was just disgusting, but saddening too for him because I felt like I saw the lostness in him. Like I felt like you're not going to go to a spot that with that type of an attitude. That's a good spot. So I guess any type of advice. I didn't know what else to say after that because of what he said. It just I don't know. It was disgusting. But I don't know if you have a message that I could possibly give to this young man, or I mean,
Well, the only thing you could do, and it's not going to have an immediate result, but it may affect him, is you could acknowledge his anger. I mean, you could say to him, I'm really hearing and feeling your anger against God. And I hope, and you can say, I hope someday you can find out why you feel that way and heal it. Because trust me, this, I mean, if there were magic words that you could say to him, wave a magic wand and, help him deal with that anger. Because what he's talking, he's, I mean, as you said, he's coming out at it from anger. Something happened. He had a trauma or traumas, and he's really messed up. But the only person who's, I mean, with the help of God, he can deal with that stuff and get healed. But you're probably not the one.
yeah, I'm just a regular Joe myself, so I get it. But anyways, I felt like I should ask you that. And you mentioned something about God being able to review your life and knows everything you think or thought. How do you avoid past thoughts? How do you avoid future thoughts, present thoughts? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. And what I urge people to do, Jesus says, come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy burden, and I will give you rest. So what I do, and what I think Jesus wants all of us to do, is to take that stuff to him. Like, for lack of a better term, let's call it guilt and shame and guilt. I talked to Jesus about shame and guilt, and he said, they're just, those feelings are destructive. They don't get you anywhere, and it just keeps you down. They're not worthless. They're harmful. And he wants us to give him that. So I take it to him. I hand him my junk. I hand him my shame. I hand Jesus my guilt. I hand Jesus my sins, and he takes them from me.
Yeah, I do the same thing, but maybe it's because of my instant gratification attitude, I guess. I seem like I've been doing it now for about 4 years. And the more I do it, the more I seem like I get these negative thoughts personally. And I know other people have said this to me. And I bring it to Jesus. But what I don't understand when you say bring it to Jesus, like you just say, okay.
Yeah, no, give it to him. Give it to him. Say, I'm giving you this like terrible thing that I did or that I felt or that I'm ashamed of. I'm giving it all to you.
Is that like on a daily basis? Because I have some pretty nasty thoughts in the run of a day. And I don't mean like murderous thoughts or nothing like that, but I mean, usually it involves the opposite gender, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And other things, murderous thoughts, I guess what I read in the Bible is when you get angry towards somebody. I'm driving down the road and somebody cuts me off. There's some vulgarities that drop out of me,
I know, but you know what? Like the road example that you used, I think is like pretty common experience. And I certainly had the same thing. Now we are wired to fight or flight. You're driving down the road going, like in the US, everybody drives 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. Okay. The speed limit's 65, everybody's going 75. If it's 45, they're going 55. That's the way it is in the US. So I'm cruising along, blending in with the traffic. I'm not passing and I'm not slowing anybody down. I'm just like trying to, move with the flow, right? And we have this like supposed rule on US highways to pass on the left, right? Like most of the freeways I drive on are like 3 or 4 lanes. Okay. We've got a nice highway system here in the US. And so I'm cruising along like in the middle lane, my favorite lane, gives me options. And I see in my rear view mirror, typically a sports car or a souped up sedan or something, somebody going, 90 or 100 miles an hour, weaving in and out, going from the left lane, cutting through the middle lane, into the right lane, through the middle lane, into the left lane. I mean, and I'm talking about the whole road is there, and they are weaving out like just looking for a little opening. And when I'm talking about an opening, I'm talking about a car length. These people never use turn signals. What's a turn signal, right? And if there's a car length opening between two cars, they're in and out, which typically means that the car that they've just cut off, the car that they've just gone in front of, has to do a little braking, because like they're cutting through with like a couple feet to spare. Okay, you get the picture. What's my reaction? Ram them, run them off the road. I don't care what it does to my car. The only problem is I drive a Camry, which is not a big car, but when I'm in my pickup truck, I feel much more macho, much more aggressive. Particularly my rear bumper is a big heavy duty bumper, like which could crush a lot of regular cars. Anyways, so my first reaction is fear. I mean, that's the first reaction. And that fear turns immediately into aggression. And then I'm thinking, whoa, I'm not going to do that. Endanger like 20 other drivers, expressing my anger, by trying to have my vengeance on this person. Fat chance I could ever catch up to him anyways in my pickup truck, because I couldn't. But anyways, this whole thing's all like going on in my mind. It's not very rational. And then I think, no, that's not who I am. And then I start thinking about the person. That person is in trouble, because anyone that would do anything that dangerous and stupid, there is something going on in their life. Now, maybe their girlfriend just kicked them out and they're angry. Maybe their child got hurt at school and they're rushing to the hospital. Maybe they just got fired from their job. Maybe they just took a lot of like heavy duty drugs and they don't, and they're out for a joyride and they don't, and they're like, their mind isn't functioning because they're higher than a kite and they just, and they don't, not even aware of what they're doing. Of course, along with all these thoughts, I'm thinking, gee, wouldn't it be nice if there were a policeman up there who saw him and pulled him over? Wouldn't that be great? It never seems to happen though. Anyways, so you know what the next thing I do is, and I do that, I really honestly do this, and I'm not trying to make myself up to be a holy Joe or anything. So then I think, okay, they're really messed up. I'm going to pray for them. Because I really, honestly, I really don't want them to get hurt. And equally important, if not more important, I don't want them to hurt somebody else. What if there's like a woman with 3 of her kids in the car and they cut her off and she freaks out and overreacts with the wheel and, and hits another car, goes into the guardrail or goes over the hill and rolls her car. I mean, what if that happened? Because they're endangering everybody on this road. And it's like, and so I start praying for them, like, Lord, calm them down, give them some sense, get them off the highway, chill them out, do something, but whatever you do, make them stop what they're doing and wake up, So you can't help but, number one, something like that happens, you can't help it. You be afraid is good. That's the right thing to feel. If you're not afraid, there's something wrong with you. And then the next thing, when you get that fear, it's like you get aggressive, like, I will fight back. Corey, if you kick me, I'm going to kick you back. Sorry, buddy. if you punch me, I'm going to punch you back. I didn't, you know, not because I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to do it. And I've done it, you know, and I'll do it again because it's just the way I'm kind of wired up, you know. But you don't, if you can, you stop and you think like, no, that's not going to fix anything. That's going to, you know, not going to solve anything. I gotta take this down. And like, I need God to intervene in this.
Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. It's the thoughts really that I wonder about. Like I find myself, and I've been told by other people, they feel the same way too. It's constantly repenting for what you've done. Like when you feel anger towards people, then you start feeling bad, and it's like, well, I'm sorry for feeling that way. Blah
Yeah,
blah blah.
but part of this is just being human. You know,
Yeah.
part of us, we're an animal. You know.
Doesn't Jesus in the Bible warn us against that stuff? Says, you
Yeah.
know, if you,
Yeah.
so if we're wired that way, do we just got to sit in repentance at all times, or?
Well, we can work on our wiring, not be quite so hot tempered.
Well, it's not necessarily anger. I'm talking about other things too. But I mean, you know, that one come up. But yeah, I guess yeah, it's just a daily struggle, you know, for me.
I pray all the time. I pray all the time for kindness, patience, compassion.
I do that too.
Become a better person.
Is praying, I don't know if I've asked you this before, I may have, but is praying more like just talking to Jesus, like he's
absolutely
not like he's a kid, but more like a buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because I do that. I mean, I feel like maybe I'm doing something wrong because I feel like maybe I should be getting into these big elaborate prayers that everybody's telling me about. But then I'm like, well, I just,
you know, Jesus told me in prayer, all he wants is honesty. That's all he wants. And if you want to, you know, gussy it up with all kinds of flowery language, he's totally not impressed. It's like, get to the point. What are you trying to say here?
Yeah, get it over with. What about, like, does he I just had something in my mind and I lost it, but basically he just wants us to ask him, just tell him the truth. What if you lie to yourself? Like I have people that have told me that they're not alcoholics, and I'm looking at them, or drug addicts, and I'm like, you know, you are, but they're lying to themselves, right? Because they still want to stay in that, or you know, at least they're trying to get out of it, but they're really not. I don't know.
Well, that's, you know, as you know, with like NA and AA, the first big issue is to get someone to admit they're an alcoholic. And it's one of the interesting things about like going to an AA meeting or NA meeting. It's like, I am not an alcoholic, but anyways, if I were an AA member, an alcoholic, at a meeting, the first thing I would say is, "Hi, I'm Howard, and I'm an alcoholic." I mean, the first step to get in the room, basically, you know, is to admit it. You know, to say you got a problem.
It's tough. It was tough for me to.
The biggest problem in this world to get people to admit they got problems. That's the biggest problem.
Kind of an oxymoron, eh? All right. Well, I know you only give us an hour, which is great. That's more than enough time. So I don't want to keep drilling you with questions.
Okay.
But if there's anything you want to like leave out to the people, I know we got a dog in the background there of yours. So he's been in a couple of your videos.
Oh, can you see him?
I can. Yeah, I saw him in a couple of your videos.
Come up here. Come up here.
There you go.
This is oh, I'm sorry. I got his leg caught in the chair. This is Patrick.
Patrick, he's a handsome.
He's my guru. He's my guru.
He's got quite the hair on him.
Yeah, he's teaching me about kindness and love and patience. And you know what? He doesn't hold a grudge against anybody.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Maybe I should get a dog then.
Oh, dogs are great. They're very forgiving.
Yeah, they seem to be. I had one years ago, but he got killed. So after that, I just, that was enough for me and dogs. I told you that today.
Losing a dog is really heartbreaking.
Yeah, well, I was only a kid then. So ever since then, I'm going to attribute it to that and never wanted dogs anymore. And it seems like every time I get one, they die. My last girlfriend had a dog and she had him for years. Then I come along and 2 years later, he died unexpectedly. So I stopped getting attached to them. because of that, you know,
Well-
but I'm going to get one at some point because I do like them.
He's 11 years old,
11.
and I don't want to say it, but you know,
Yeah.
dogs, if they live to be 15, that's pretty good. So,
Well, my kid's got a dog. Well, their mother had a dog, was almost 20 before he died. So you might have a
Wow.
few more years.
wow.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's
It
not
was a
common.
little dog. It was a little dog.
I think, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It was back when
Big,
she was a
big
kid.
dogs have shorter lives than little dogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to get a little dog then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's a handsome boy. I just saw him
Thanks.
in a couple of your videos and I thought maybe I should bring it up and introduce him to the YouTube viewers.
Hi, everybody.
There you go. Hi, Patrick.
He's,
Uh,
hey, he really is a dog.
my stepdaughters will love him.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Well,
Okay.
I gotta get off to work here, so I'll see you whenever we set up another time.
Great. Okay.
I appreciate you doing this.
Yep.
We'll
God
be talking
bless.
to you. God bless you as well.